Quiet on set! Kevin, you gotta say action.
Did somebody say action?
Today we're putting on our yellow hazmat suits and finally enter Kane Parsons' Backrooms, as well as another YouTube to cinema sensation with the amazing digital circus Last Act.
Woody, Buzz, and Jesse are back in Toy Story 5, and I joined them for the first time. Yes, I've never actually seen a Toy Story movie in one sitting, sue me. But with a massive opening day and a likely $275 million plus opening weekend, it's looking to be another massive Disney hit. And somehow, Ewan has seen the Furious before me.
That's almost like D-Day for you if you wait, I don't want to say that you are the Nazi forces and I'm the one who see. Let's restart that. I also watched the Andrew Scott-led D-Day World War II meteorologist drama called Pressure. You watched that too. We got a review for that. Then I also watched Scary Movie 6, also known as Scary Movie, because you dropped the 6, I guess. David Lowery's Mother Mary, one of the 5 films Anne Hathaway stars in this year. By the way, she just announced she's pregnant with a third child as well. Woman is crazy busy. And I also watched the Zoe Deutsch and Nick Robinson-led Netflix rom-com called Voicemails for Isabelle, among a few other things. It's been another busy week for me, Kevin.
I wouldn't have been able to tell.
Well, it's just been so hot over here. We've consistently had 35-degree plus days here in Switzerland. A literal heat wave warning is out that it is in the morning right now. I haven't slept, and you can't tell because I look fresh as fuck, of course. This looks like it just slept for 10 hours, right? And I'm adjusting my scheduling a bit when it comes to sleeping. I've dotted in some of the hottest hours to hopefully, we'll see. This experiment I'll do for a week, and I'll come back next week, and I might be a wreck, and then we can look back and sort of funnily laugh about it. But it is consistently 35 degrees for 8 hours a day, and I don't have great AC in here. It is killing me. It's not killing me as much as Amazon is trying to kill Artificial. The
Good segue.
Open AI movie by Luca Guadagnino that it just dropped. And you know what? Let's just get. I can give you some facts and figures and maybe why they did this and all that. But first, on an impression basis, what do you think? Do you think this movie still releases? Does it still go to Venice? Is it even more important to go to Venice to be shopped around? What do you think?
I'm glad it's not one thing that people are saying. It's not a quality issue. So far, that's not a single thing that we have heard about the movie. So hearing it's actually because of the OpenAI deal that Amazon has with them, that I'm okay, fine. It does burn bridges between Guadagnino and Amazon though, because he has released his last few movies with them. So I can imagine it's sort of a Christopher Nolan, Warner Brothers type issue and fight that they'll probably have over there. And he'll move on to another studio. Now, will that be Universal? Or will that be Sony? Or will that be Netflix? But Netflix has said, hey, we're not going to work with directors that want to do a theatrical release. So again, burning bridges there as well. So it's a little bit of a free-for-all, I think, with the bidding of this movie. Might it be Netflix? I mean, it is OpenAI. I don't know if Netflix has any, workings with OpenAI as well. You just never know what's happening behind the scenes with these companies.
Yeah, already for their syncing. So the issue is, I think the large issue is how much big tech is involved in the media space. That Warner Brothers, merging possibly with Paramount, the only one who's sort of not tied up in all of this mess is Universal. And I feel like at the moment it is a safe haven for someone for example, Christopher Nolan to go, right? And it feels like that's sort of where you would probably go after making that path, and that's sort of the sensible path to make. I could also see Sony, they're way smaller of a business company, of a media company, so that will make sense to me. But apart from Universal and I don't know who else could pick up this movie, because I think it's a pretty expensive movie still. So it's tough. I mean, this sort of is also in the interest of Amazon, if they want to bury the movie, to sell it for a high amount, overselling it, in the same way that Warner Brothers is writing off some of their other stuff that has, now found a release date later in the year with
Coyote versus Acme.
and that one's still coming out like over a year of it. It was almost 2 years now. Where it's supposed to.
I feel it's been a long time. Yeah.
So yeah. I don't think this is great news, but
it's also like if this an Oscar type movie, Guadagnino really hasn't been in the Oscar conversation with his last few films. Challenges did get snubbed for score, like best original score a few years ago.
Editing but too, in my opinion, but yeah.
After the Hunt didn't get anything, sort of flopped. So it's also like how good is this so-called artificial movie, and can it play to something like The Social Reckoning? Like, is it gonna play better than that, or is it gonna play into some other tropes? We don't know.
Yeah, from what it is about, and I feel like that is pretty clear. It's like right in that time where he was like ousted as a CEO and brought back in. And there's a bit more details that we have on that, like actually now, and I assume it's going to dive closer into that. And like since then, I think Sam Altman wanted to make himself out to be like this good person to sort of turn to. And he's sort of like, especially in the last 6 months, just sort of shown that he's thrown everything out the window for the desperate sort of dependency on this government money. I don't know how much like you've read up on it, but I'm pretty up to date with all of this stuff because it's like largely influential on how the US economy is holding itself up. And it is like literally like holding itself up. It's like the Obama meme, but instead of a medal, it's strangling itself. That's sort of what it's doing with AI. And yeah, it's a really interesting development. I don't know if Guadagnino has like shown to have the best nuanced take on this political stuff, because I think After the Hunt wasn't that much of a clear hit. But it's going to, have someone playing Elon and Altman, and like Elon has this open hatred for OpenAI for years now because they've wronged him in some way as well. So it's like, this is such a loaded movie, like way more than I would even say The Apprentice was. I think this has the thing of like even going larger because it's sort of representing someone who's like on the forefront of so many like of this current frustration. So I hope we get this movie in Venice. I think it will be like probably the biggest movie to land there, if it lands there, I feel like. And if it does, because it's not with Amazon now, and I think Guadagnino requested it to be outside of competition, right? Not Amazon last year with After the Hunt, I forget.
Yeah, I think so.
But I don't know if he does that again. But I feel like if you want to sell, then it might be a good thing to try and do competition. I think it's a safer bet if you already have to.
Just for marketing sake, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, Kevin, you have your hazmat suit ready? Because otherwise, I think we should go in groups of 3 usually into the Backrooms. I think that's sort of how it said, like no less than the groups of 3. So let's bring in our surprise. No, sorry, I don't have a surprise guest to review the Backrooms with us, unfortunately, today. But let's talk about the movie from a 2-year-old, right? Kane Parsons, I believe. Like he's... So, okay, let's get on to me. Like, I'll start with my annoying introductions to the Backrooms. But Kevin, what's the Backrooms all about?
A strange doorway appears in the basement of a furniture showroom. We know we do love short synopsises around here, mm-hmm. right? We do. We love them.
Getting straight to the point and knowing, I guess, that like this movie was already sold through the years that the online discourse has come from, not just Kane Parsons' series that he's done over the last, I believe, 4 years, but also with the spark of that image back in May of 2019, even pre-COVID, and the sort of forums and chat rooms on 4chan, those posts, the wikis that have sort of deepened sort of the different levels of this aesthetic, but also the sort of liminal space that then was taken over by sort of the like in early 2021, 2022, I believe, when we had the image creation. It was something that was very easily replicable. And we saw like a flood of these AI created like liminal space, dream core type stuff that was all over the internet. There were game modes made in Roblox. There's multiple games. There's like the inspired stuff like Exit 8 of these like spaces that you repeat, and it's gotta find the anomalies to sort of escape from it. So that sort of feeling has been in the current zeitgeist, especially for Gen Z audiences. And you can see it at the box office. Movie it's already made, I believe, like $272 million at the moment. So a huge profit for a film that has only cost about $10 million, was picked up, or like produced, not picked up, by A24 and really had the support behind it to sort of bring the full vision that Kane Parsons had to life. And it also has a great cast and really, I think, works, for me at least, on that level of creating that feeling of that space. And I went into this film watching it without having seen any of the web series stuff that Kane had done before in Blender, and then I did like binge through all of it. It's like a little bit less than 3 hours, I think, in total, and it's really interesting. I think especially like the third found footage film that he has, like 3 in the, like, I'd say, like main series of found footage, that feels the closest to what he's going for in the movie as well. And because the movie has been out for like almost a month now, we will be talking spoilers for it. But I talked enough, Kevin. What did you think about Backrooms?
I've seen, I think, the first Backroom videos a while ago, not any recently. I've watched the movie twice now. We were supposed to record this like yesterday, but then, no, it's fine. But yeah. I did watch it twice now. Mm-hmm. And, the Backrooms is so interesting to me because everyone can have an interpretation in it. Like you said, amount of people that are inspired by it. Hell, even the creator of Severance has said that he's inspired by the Backrooms, which it makes sense because when you watch Backrooms, you're also like, my God, it does have some similarities to Severance. I want to actually throw a question back at you, sort of instantly. And that is, what is the Backrooms in this movie to you?
I think it is very much like like what it spells out that it's sort of memories, wrongly remembering something again and again and again. Yeah, sort of the thing that maybe even an AI could do if you would give it the same prompt over and over again, where it sort of loses itself. And that's sort of not that that's like what he's going for, but I think the stuff that doesn't really work that well is the stuff that is more on the character level. But I like the sort of visualization of this memory that sort of is wrongly remembered and something's off about it, because it's like very clearly an easy horror image. Yep. And it comes back to that phrase of like, what is it, like someone who's never seen a dog, make them draw it, and how that comes out like completely off. But what was it to you? Like, what do you think like the Backrooms was in this film?
To me, the Backrooms has always been an internet allegory. And it's because everybody is sort of losing themselves into it. And the internet is a place where you can sort of dump everything. And it's like it sort of fades away with time as well, very much. And the Backrooms in this movie becomes way more of a metaphysical place. And I love Kane Parsons' choice with doing so, referring to something physical in the actual world and something like metaphorical and in the sense of the internet, like you said with AI, but I look at it a little bit more broad. And I think the character work does work with the Backrooms. I must admit, I think I'm in the minority, but I really like Chiwetel Ejiofor and Renate Reinsberg characters in this, because this movie, you know how we sometimes have these high concept movies and then we have like a sludge of character work to get through to really like stretch the whole fucking concept over a 90-minute movie. Blumhouse movies are the prime example for that. Kane Parsons in this movie gives us just enough of his backstory in a non-dialogue way that I actually appreciate the dinner scene near the end of the movie a bit more than, with other horror movies. And I've watched the movie yesterday with our in-house, shall I say, expert Luca, horror expert Luca, who wrote a thesis on found footage. And he said, like, hey, all the found footage stuff he was totally in for. But for example, the dinner scene, he didn't really like. And we had different views on what the Backrooms mean, which, again, like, it speaks to the strength of the concept of these liminal spaces and of the Backrooms itself. Chiwetel Ejiofor, who, let's be honest, is an absolute bum, a little bit on the bottom of the barrel, just taking a tumble after tumble in life, not really holding on to anything he can possibly, hold for. At a certain moment, he even says, like, I've gone down the easy path, sort of the path of least resistance, and that's why he is loving the Backrooms. And it also speaks to conspiracy theories, because that's also what the Backrooms is. Anybody can have their say about what it is and conspire about it. And that Kane Parson also talks about in the Backrooms, like Showtel Ejiofor is a conspiracy theorist, very much like Renate Reinsve's mother in the movie. And I think it's also very brilliant on Renate Reinsve's part to be like, during that dinner scene, to be, I can make something right again, because she's never really been able to let go of her mother, and she could have probably ran at any moment outside of that house, really wanting to, even with the opening of that window at a certain point. But she stayed with her, and she's really never been able to let go. And even throughout all, the studies, to be this big therapist that she is now, like releasing an audiobook and all that, still also like sort of leaning on that edge of, I'm also sort of going down this path of going to the back rooms and then saying to Ejiofor, like, you know what, I'm not gonna be able to help you. You do you, man. And that's also something with just the internet, like we are so right, like we are so quick to say to another, like, no, and then we are going into discussions and like, oh, you are pathetic, like, no, that is not the truth, fact checking, all that stuff that we live in the digital age. And the Backrooms really give a sharp commentary on that, and I actually love the Backrooms. I think it is such a good movie that I might prefer slightly over Obsession.
Yeah, for me, it's a clear winner, but I think I brought it up. I think it's also interesting to have like a lead character like Clark compared to someone like Bear, who is sort of on the same way. We aren't introduced to him to be the villain, and the more we uncover about him, we see that he's like not someone who's progressing in a way and just like sort of given into his shortcomings and sort of seeing himself as the victim by the end. And I think that's sort of an interesting parallel that both of these movies center around male characters that are unwilling to sort of grow. And what you said with the internet as well, I think it works perfectly in this allegory of like the conspiracy theorist, yes, but someone who's like going into these spaces that only sort of with your own memory that is warped with your own subjective interpretation, the deconstruction of that, like that sort of falling apart and you feeling like that is then the new reality that you live in, even though it's like very apparent that it's not. And like that is sort of a representation of a lot of like discourse and how it's happening and how like split apart it can be. And I think like that is like I don't know how much of that is intentional on Kane's part. I think he like in his interviews he comes across as someone who also wants to come across as someone who's like thoughtful. I think he chooses his words very carefully. Like he's someone who you would probably describe as like, oh, he seems older than his age and like more mature. I think that also speaks to like having all of these ideas drawn up from his own mind with Blender, like the way that he expands, like obviously not the idea of the Backrooms, but like expanding on this idea that sort of it creating onto this world that like here in this film, it does connect to something that you can sort of feel, and still leaving it open for a lot of these like theories and different levels to coexist that don't intersect with like the wikis. And I think the way that the wikis work sometimes is like there's two wikis and one of them is a bit more open for people to just post their own like experiences, and the other one's more like heavily moderated. And it is becoming probably a bit confusing to people where like again, because there's this plethora of Backrooms content, and I think it was like at this highest point during 2023, I believe, when like his like the first short really I think it came out in 2023, right? Or 2022, or like when that really picked up. But that was just like a year of basically too much stuff about it all. And I feel like that has slowed down a bit more, where this sort of came at the perfect time to guide this almost like franchise now forward in the way that these that like the story is unfinished. It's very much feels like this is like a at least 3-part series, I'd say, the way that he sort of goes about it, because like we barely scratched the surface with the scientist, and what he focused on a lot in his stories was async as the company, like these null spaces. And I think another big difference is that like in his found footage stuff, it is found footage where people fall into it. right? They like fall through into these like I don't know if it's the null spaces where you have the thing where you like fall. I think that's what it's called. In the film here, it is definitely like it is a choice by everyone who goes in, who sort of gives into this like
except the seagull.
True. It also speaks to something natural that I don't know if every human has that, but something about like exploring and making a map of something and understanding it. That's something that is like very like in a puzzle level, very cathartic to do, even though it is very scary. So I don't know if I would actually go in, but like the way that Kane talked about it as well is like that he would be the type of person who like you see something on the wall that like he goes into the back rooms, he would go in, he would go explore. And that's the sort of type of person he is. And I feel like you can feel that sense of blind diving into something, even though it sort of comes off as scary. He gets to sort of explore that through his characters.
But like the Backrooms is bound and connected with fascination, with intrigue. I've seen the movie twice now. I did not get tired of any of the backroom sequences. I mean, I dare call this movie really rewatchable, and you know that might be a crazy thing to say, but it's just that once you're in there, like it is the most fascinating stuff you've seen on screen in horror movie this year. The production design, I gotta say it, man. Like it is fucking stellar. Naturally, all mostly practical, and you can go so many directions with it, as have other people with liminal spaces. Just look at Exit 8, which is another movie that we're really fond of. And, you know, you can make a pool. Like the fact that the pool room, it is by nature a little bit of a sterile environment, and you can make it creepy. And then it opens the door for so many other things. And I also like we said, with the thing of memory, because in the Backrooms, as what I remember, with the actual YouTube series, the monster in the Backrooms is like sort of alien-like, I guess. Like
bacteria.
Sort of,
I think bacteria. Yeah.
I like the fact that he changed it up with the pirate in this one. Like the fact that it can be, like it can replicate. And then what I said in my like small review is that I'm looking forward in the sequel to lean more into the philosophical side of the Backrooms. Like, if the monster actually, you know, replicating because at a certain moment they also scan the brain of Renate Rensfer when she escapes. So it's like, is there something there? And I like the idea of the Backrooms also having access to your brain, like to your memory, and sort of replicating itself or like morphing itself into the big pirate. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the lore explored a little bit more, of like, you know, let's actually have a discussion about what the Backrooms is in the sequel. And this one, I think everybody now knows what the Backrooms is, the atmosphere it creates, how existential it is. And I feel like in the sequel, we can really push into the meaning of it.
Yeah, I think one disjointedness that I felt with the film is that it is sort of in these somewhat chapters that are like there's gaps in the story that does feel like it does need to restart and ramp up. Where I get why it's built the second to third one, where like he's missing and he's sort of not coming into his sessions anymore with Renate. The one that's like, okay, let's see other people investigate this now. Or like see her go in and see what's up, and then to have that be the reveal that he sort of lost himself. And when she enters, there's like, you can see he's coming back and forth and spin in that conspiracy mode where you can see actual working lights there as well. And I get why he constructed the reveal that way, but I think I would have just preferred to sort of even follow that, like descending into that insanity even more. Even though it's hard to write, I think it's hard to like make work. But Chiwetel, like Ejiofor, I think he's someone who could portray that. I think he could do that. He's capable of it. And then I found the sort of focus on Renate's character, that was to me a bit too basic. And when people came out of this, they were saying, "Oh, a movie doesn't handhold and sort of tell you too many things." And I agree with that when it comes to the backroom stuff. But when it comes to these two characters, I feel like I am not. Like, there's not a lot of room for me to sort of interpret stuff. I think it's pretty straightforward. But maybe you disagree.
It is straightforward, but it's not done in like what I said with the actual exposition of, like, in these Blumhouse movies, like a neighbor saying like, oh yeah, her mother, or, something along those lines. And it is straightforward, but it doesn't ham-fist it for you. And that is what I also really appreciate.
For me, it's right on the line with Renata, the amount of times we cut back to that house and there. I think it was like one too many. I think we do it twice, and I think once would have been enough for me. It's not a huge critique. I think it's like, really, overall, it works. But I think the characterization here was the thing that didn't, like, the one that kept me intrigued in this film were the performances, not the characters.
Should we tell? Like, Luke and I were saying, like, like, he's really reminding us of the actor that he can be. He unfortunately has been in these, lesser films over the years. He has been in banging films in the past. I mean, he got obviously Oscar nominated for 12 Years a Slave. And he's been in so many good movies, whether in smaller parts, in bigger parts. He's been in Inside Man, Children of Men, The Martian. But over these past few years, you've had Maleficent. He was the villain in Old Guard. Wasn't that shitty? Anne Hathaway, Lockdown, Quarantine movie.
Yeah.
Infinite. And it's like, he was very good in Life of Chuck, but this really feels like a return to form for him. And like the whole time, even during the second time, I'm like, thank you once again for really showing us the actor that you can be. I mean, he has turned into a director as well. He done that Rob Peace movie, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. So, but yeah,
I mean, I think it's like speaking to a larger issue yet again in Hollywood. I think that sort of Trump-like state right now of this just not like, if you look at black-led projects, apart from like the nameable sort of big, like Jordan Peele and Ryan Coogler, and like when it comes to like the awards conversation, because I saw it in the most recent Oscar expert video, they were like looking at the coming up on the Oscar nominations and what's likely at this point of the year, and a lot of it was like no women in directing and actor and actresses everywhere, basically mainly all like white. And there was the incident, there was a thing like Oscar so white, like about 10 years ago now, I think. And that sort of created a spark of like, okay, we actually, greenlight more of these productions, but I think it hasn't really hit yet. And you can see it with a lot of like people who have that Oscar acclaim, like he has as well, like a Lakeith Stanfield, who's nominated, not winning, though. So many others that like there's not the quality of the work that speaks against it, but just the types of roles that they deserve to be the lead of a film as well. And there's not enough stories being told. And I think here you got a perfect example where like he works really well and he is the lead or like a co-lead of the film, at least for like, I feel like he is the lead, even though he's like disappears for a little bit in the film, just about opportunity. I think someone who I like couldn't make sense of was like Mark Duplass' character, who clearly is a setup for like a later stage of the story. And if you watch, and I did watch all of the short films that Kim Parsons made, a lot of his focus is on the scientists and from their point of view, and these films have been recovered. It is rarely from the perspective of someone like actually going in and telling that story that way, or like a close-up story that we get that outside of this found footage stuff, because like the way that they present anyone else who isn't a scientist is through the found footage that they shot themselves, right? That's sort of the aesthetic that he went for.
I feel like with the government thing as well, so we have two facets where we're talking about, right? We're talking about footage that the government or like the big corporations are seemingly hiding from us. And then we have that combined with the fascination of the backrooms. And that makes for a compelling formula, the two of them combined, right?
Yeah, I think it's a bit too vague in this, where you question, other than like for when it comes up later, why we start with the perspective of Mark Duplass when he doesn't show up until the end. And then it also doesn't give you really, I think it's like very much feels like an episode of a series.
But I meant in the shorts that you watched.
Oh, yeah, a lot of them also were exploring the lore and sort of giving you explanations. Yeah, and it really set that up well, that I feel like a lot of it does speak to like the larger society around it that he wants to craft. So it's very much also the world building. And I think it also is that like a if a therapist that doesn't have her own life in order, not that all therapists have their life in order, a lot of them, everyone has their own issues to varying degrees, but someone who's also a therapist who can't help their patient, and then you are with this other guy who's like dressing up as a pirate for his store, sort of working a job that he probably shouldn't keep doing. Like it's sort of breaking him, and he keeps doing it anyways because well, that's what he's done, and all the things that have gone wrong in his life is because other people have sort of made these choices for him or like wronged him in some sort of way. And I think it's like a really frustrating character trait, right? To see someone be sort of this stubborn about but I think like he has a moment where he then also gets mad in one of the sessions, and that to me was like, that felt the most fake-ish. The sort of niceness of it all like felt quite corporate, and I think that's what the feeling that he goes for. But then it rang a bit hollow to me. Like that's where like some of the characterization felt to me the weakest, and I felt that he's a young director observing these things of like these deeper feelings that you have as you get older.
Yeah,
all of those things I think were like more a sort of on a LARPing aspect, like touched on in these characters, and not from maybe a bit more of a like a truth there. But I know what he's going for and the sort of larger feelings that he's going, like those I understand, but I don't feel them, if that makes sense.
I'm on the opposite. Like I do sort of agree with you. Sometimes they don't work. For example, with the dinner scene in the Backrooms themselves, they sort of do restart the conversation, and I was like, I would have really liked to see, building upon the conversation of earlier. But
yeah,
besides that, I really have little flaws, like with the movie itself.
What do you think about the chase when she has to run from the
wonderful
pirate? Yeah,
wonderful.
It's really great.
It's great. The fact that it's also like when we were young, sometimes you would move furniture around, make a little fort, or like it was in the stupid Insidious trailer of like, she's going underneath the couch, that little fort, but then it just keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that there's just a room full of couches and she has to jump over it, like, breaks her leg on one of them, or like, injures them. It's the concept of, couches, hey, fun, but all of a sudden they're an obstacle. When she gets out of that house where they have the dinner scene in it, and then it's the houses of the employees of Clark's, of Chiwetel, with the orange doors. I was like, I'm so floored. I just love the production design that they are doing in this movie. It does feel a little bit Severance-esque. Like, I would not be surprised if they are production members of Severance that worked on this, because they look sometimes so similar. But yeah, I love this movie.
Well, I think there's two more characters, like the two younger ones, who have sort of a role that I expected a bit more from, and then they sort of just disappear from the film. The one played by Finn Bennett and Lukita Maxwell, who the latter I do know from her couple of seasons that she did on Shrinking, where I thought she was wonderful. And here she's really given a tough role to play, where they basically have to play a role of like, oh, look at this weird ass Ankh that I think she works for, and he's sort of helping out because he has a video camera. They're the toughest to sort of round. They feel like they're in there to give a reference off of like Clark's weirdness and how he interacts with people, to give more of a reference point, other than, because there's never, I think is there ever like a customer in his store? I think that we don't see one, like, I don't remember seeing.
One time.
Oh, one time.
Yeah, they are at the desk, and I think one, like the other guy is talking to one customer. But also one of the reasons that the customers, like, there aren't any customers, because then you would perhaps see the customers in the back room. So there's a little bit of a smart choice there, because otherwise, if the back rooms is copying the people that are above them, then there would be more people or like creatures in the store, like in the back room.
I mean, that's another thing with the time jump, where like it doesn't really add up to me 100%. Like, it doesn't really make sense that like the post, like, stacks up at the door, but no one goes in even though it's unlocked, like, and the police doesn't do anything about the disappearances of these like two young adults. Maybe not about him, but like, it doesn't really make a ton of sense, but it's not on a Spielberg Disclosure Day level of like nonsensical, you know. When we compare these two filmmakers.
Luca and I were also talking about, you know, which movie made us more uncomfortable. For example, with Obsession, I was just uncomfortable the whole time. But he said I actually felt more uncomfortable with the Backrooms because of how like the eerie element that it inherently has. I didn't personally at all either.
Maybe we're too used to these corporate office spaces that we feel right at the moment.
But yeah, like in terms of scary, I don't think this movie is scary. I will say I had a few chills. The opening thing, I don't jump scare easily, but when the opening guy is, you know, that's the first found footage part that we see, and you know he's running away from the monster, and he gets to this closed room, and then you know he has to return because the door is closed. He turns that corner, and it's like right there. Like that, admittedly made me jump scare because you just don't know how close he is. And I did get chills with the second found footage part when Chiwetel is at that wall, and all of a sudden the camera is being picked up. It's like, oh shit, that's the good one. That gave me chills.
I think it doesn't over-explain what is. I think what people were talking about is like what's happening in the back rooms. But then that also speaks to people, to like people who might have not watched the web series, because it never is about explaining anything. It is sort of more about adding to this lore of vagueness, and then it's up to other people who are watching to sort of piece it together. But it doesn't feel like the people who make it have this clear vision of how everything needs to fit. There's a clear intentionality of how they put it together, but it doesn't feel like, I don't know, there's something to solve. And I think with a lot of these films, especially the ones that Gen Z are so obsessed with the lore and everything, there is an over explanation that they sort of seek, or like the Easter egg type of stuff. It's the fascination of like, you know, Marvel 10 years ago of everything, and DC needs to be explained and connected. And I feel like this is just a new generation of that, like with the internet lore of creating that yourself, not just based off of comics that now get reinterpreted. It is this sort of internet history that gets adapted in some shape or form that feels way more interactive, the way we seek all of our entertainment now with some live stream platforms like YouTube and Twitch to have that sort of one-to-one engagement. It does make sense that like it is interesting that like he keeps the lore obviously specific to when this takes place. Like the experiments, I think the first ones take place in the late 80s, and then it goes into the 90s up to, I believe, like almost the 2000s, right around there. And then we don't have sort of modern day part of this. Like, you know, this is obviously also taking place at like an earlier time where this aesthetic of the VHS also makes the most natural sense. Also, what we didn't say is like a lot of the VFX shot, like they seamlessly go from actual like footage into Blender, and then Kane did those parts themselves. Like the cinematographer talked about it, that he now uses it for pre-visualizations and stuff like that, and getting all of that ready. Like the way that they lit this stuff with basically fluorescent lights top down, and there was behind the scenes shots of those huge balloon lights that they sort of had to illuminate, and they were like going back and forth because it was an outdoors set looking like it was an inside thing when she walks through the streets there. Like all of the behind the scenes has been lovely to see, and I also really enjoyed that they are like this quickly sharing all of that stuff and talking about it openly, because I think a lot of other productions don't do that. And I think like even with the death of Robin Hood, there's been a bit more talks about that. So I gotta give praise to like the creators and like the distribution company of A24 who does sort of make that. I don't know how much they are involved with like setting that stuff up, but I've watched multiple stuff about like cinematography and the production, and it was incredibly interesting.
But it's also when Kane Parson was creating that series on YouTube, he had a Discord server with people he said were better at Blender than himself, and were creating these props and these things to put into his videos, and it was a very collaborative process of sort of this, you know, open source material of like, oh, hey, I can create this, or does anybody know how to? And he's pulling that along in his creative process. And that's maybe also something that we see with this younger generation. For example, like that Everything Everywhere All at Once, the fact that it won VFX, even though nobody really knew any VFX. They all learned it very much on the go. And it's sort of a new generation of, people that are teaching themselves, aren't necessarily going to film school. And it's a very collaborative process. And it's an exciting future to see that, because a lot of people have said, oh, the YouTube filmmakers, but, there are also a lot of people behind it that also create along with them. And I'm really happy that he mentioned those people. And like, he's honest and isn't, saying like, hey, it's all me, very much leaning upon others. Curry Barker have done that as well now with the whole art director debacle, saying like, hey, a lot of people are behind me. And, while I might not be able to pay them their dues with how successful this movie is, I do hope this is a launching platform for those people to go on to do bigger things. And it's this very humble time for filmmakers. With the Philippou brothers, I was thinking the other day, it's like, are the Philippou brothers of this new so-called YouTube generation, are the Philippou brothers sort of the Jordan Peele? And then you have Eggers and Ari Aster, then it's Curry Barker and Kane Parsons. I was thinking, like, are they the new, like, little trio of filmmakers that we need to look out for? Because they each got their own thing going. Curry Barker has the comedy thing, then Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Kane Parsons is, I assume, going to do Backrooms 2 pretty quickly. Already said that he will find somebody to work on the screenplay with together.
Mm-hmm. And he said the story was unfinished too, right? That it's ongoing.
Yeah, and I think a sequel to this movie has like a lot of potential to be better, because now you have introduced people to what the Backrooms is, what is in it, and you don't have to do that explanation anymore. Now you can really fully dive into it, and then that's why I think the sequel has a lot of potential to do better.
And I think in none of the wikis, even though it's been around for multiple years, there's been an explanation for things yet. It is still in the current stage of them trying to figure it out. But then it's also interesting because, like, in some of his shorts, he was already like showing how this corporation Async is pitching it as sort of a way to transport and storage stuff, even though it doesn't feel like they've figured it out how it completely works. So I think in the web series part, there are like, there's the vagueness of this corporation who's just sort of knows a lot and it isn't sharing with the public, and the public is getting lost in it and people are missing, and like it's more in that sort of almost true crime like esque sort of line there as well. And here, I don't know if it, like we said, like it would be more interesting if you go more into the psychological space of it all. I think that is incredibly interesting. I would love to see him do a Portal movie. Like I was thinking this, like, could it potentially like lead into Portal as well, like in a way, like because it is in sort of the web series. There are speculations and fan views. Yes, I went that far in the preparation for this, that you are skipping time, that like the recorded date on the first short, it says it like a couple of years different than what it actually is. Like, this is a discrepancy.
1990,
and then it's also like implied with one of the 1991 to 1995, and there's like something that's 2 years later, and like some recovered thing that like the people read into it. There's a plethora of videos that we don't have to sum up what they summed up way better than we did. It's also like in one of the scientist ones, it also said like someone's been in there and he was only there for a few moments or something like that, and he like was missing for 2 months. So there is a like sort of jump in not just like place but also time. And I don't think this leads into Portal, but no. I was like, wait, it could technically, it's not the craziest thing, but I would love, because he's sort of said like that Mr. Robot and Portal and like 1 Hour Photo, these things like sort of have inspired him, and some of the look of it all, especially like Mr. Robot. I can see that, like that sort of work, not as off center in the frame and everything, but sort of making interesting creative choices where to place the camera, especially with Portal, the comedy as well. Like if he can make that work, I think Portal is such a great thing to adapt. I think it does work.
I see you have watched that Letterboxd video that he has done talking about Portal.
He did, yeah. There's multiple ones. He actually talked about it a bunch. I've watched a whole bunch.
Yeah, but I watched the Letterboxd one, and that one I adored. The way that he talked about Portal, I'm like, this is the guy that gets it. And
no, because he was describing it to people who haven't played it, and that is like, it's hard to not sound like a gamer guy who is like is in his own fantasy world, but he was like, that's why he articulated it in a way where it's like, no, you get the essence of what it is. And I trust you to adapt this. I feel like that would be amazing if he did that. So I hope between maybe the second and third Backrooms movie, if he gets there, he gets to do a Portal film in between. But
hopefully, low key, I've said to Luca yesterday, I'm on the verge of like a 4 and a 4.5.
Okay.
I'm actually on the verge, and I'm gonna give it a 4.5 out of 5. Yes, there are flaws with it, but I just love the execution of it more. And it's a little bit with action movies. You know how we said, like, if you do the action right, then you can get away with a little bit lesser. And I feel like it's the exact same with horror in this movie. It's like, you've done the Backrooms and everything's so right, I can forgive you with a little lesser, dinner scene and dialogue. Like, you know what, I can forgive you for it. I give this movie a 4.5. A 9 out of 10.
I'm gonna stick with my rating because I didn't have a chance to rewatch it. And I'm gonna stick with a 3.5, but it's closer to a 4 than a 5. I think we don't have to shout out the film that it's worth checking out. In some places, like in Switzerland, is literally coming out, or it just came out this weekend. It hadn't been out yet, and Obsession isn't even out until next week, which is crazy. And even the film that you'll review for us later, Toy Story, won't be out for a month. So I don't know what the fuck they're doing in Switzerland, but it's gonna take a bit longer for all of that stuff to release. But looking forward to what he does next.
Going from one web series to another?
The Amazing Digital Circus follows a cast of humans, Pomni, Jax, Ragatha, Gangle, Kinger, and Zubul, who have become trapped in the titular circus, a virtual reality game where they engage in nonsensical activities set up by their ringmaster, the artificial intelligence Kane, at the risk of losing their sanity and abstracting into digital monsters. That's the 9-part web series, which released its episode 8 and 9 in a very successful theater run before it premiered over on YouTube, and I believe it's also available in some places on Netflix.
Oh yeah, it is.
You went out to go see this in a theater, binged it like before one of our podcast recordings ran out, came back and sort of praised how well this was put together, and I kept saying that it looks like slop. And sorry, Kevin, I take it back. This is actually a very well done animated series that concluded in a good finale. Not a great finale, in my opinion, but I do sort of like how she swung for the fences here. Like the show, I must have, like, I saw one of the premiere videos where she said, like, it just got very popular, and I don't know if people are gonna vibe with like how weird it gets in the finale. And sort of when you look at the series graph for like IMDb, it is a bit lower, not as low as like the pilot, but it's like the second or third lowest episode overall. But I think it does stick the landing, it does sort of do the circuit jumps and doesn't fall on its face or break something, but it does work. But it's oddly charming. I think I really connected with these characters quickly. Did you have a favorite character in this?
Well, I can tell you my favorite episode, and it's a shootout episode, when Jack and Pomni team up, and they are, they're really connecting with each other emotionally, and then, it's sort of like the paintball episodes in Community. That's what it reminded me of, and it's just, I just adored that episode. But then, for example, I adore the fast food episode, and funnily enough, like, the creators have worked in fast food, so they're also sort of jabbing at that industry. And just the whole, like, backstory, like, I know of like, Backrooms, but like, the backstory behind this digital circuit is also very intriguing to me. And that is unfortunately my only fault with the series as a whole, in the fact that they don't really lean into that with the finale. I think you agree with me on that front, right?
Yeah, like, without getting, like, we can talk about the specifics of the finale a bit, but we'll give you another spoiler warning for those who want to check it out, and we do recommend to go check it out yourself. But it is sort of throwing you in, these humans who are like in this artificial space and they feel trapped, and there's a sort of threat of if this AI, if we don't behave in a way, but it's also like very not just like we'll try and have fun. But if something goes wrong and you sort of lose your own sanity, and it feels like from the start of the series, it's sort of your own mentality that you can lose, not as much that you are just sort of forced to. If you lose that, then you abstract and you sort of disappear, right? You sort of die in this world. From there on out, it doesn't really, like, it is about escaping and then always sort of not agreeing with the AI that makes it all. Then it's not like all Severance like where you have sort of the thing of you trying to trick the system to get out. It is then way more about connecting in the space where we are these archetypes that connect back to our real selves. And then I think in a lot of ways it becomes the embodiment of certain feelings and tropes that speak more than just the characters in that story. Like, for example, I believe it's Zubul, right? The character who's like put together with all different sort of stuff. And to me, that was like an obvious trans allegory of like all of the parts not fitting. And I think that worked really well without like hitting you over the head with it all. And I like, even though it is sort of clarified on the adult animation, I think this also works for some curious like young teens who seek it out way earlier than they should and sort of have a visualization of sort of things that they don't understand it. I found that like those sort of things where they have the one-on-one conversations with each other incredibly beautiful. Like some of them like even put me close. I didn't cry, but they put me close to tears because it was so endearing. And I think that final episode wants to do a lot of shortcuts to arrive at an endpoint, and it just doesn't need to be that overly endearing for all of these. Like, it doesn't need to be this happy-go-lucky thing. And yeah, I think I've said enough with where I'm getting pretty close to spoilers.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to talk spoilers?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the final episode sees them after they've killed Kane, and in his own I think the Jack stuff is like, to me, he was the most interesting character, and I think it's sort of meant to be that way to me. I think it's pretty apparent that like he is the second biggest character in the story. I think it's quite like daring to do sort of part of the episode from his point of view and sort of shifting, because I don't think it works because it's tonally so different from the rest of the show, right? We sort of are forced into a perspective for a bit that a side of a character that we don't see, but also specifically a side that he doesn't show to others. And I think it sort of works. I think the sort of overall thing, what it means of trying to like at all times try to pull back someone back in and not like lose them is a beautiful message overall, that like there's something redeeming about all of us. That was sweet. But like, what the joke that cracked me up was like, oh, you can't kill off the like comic relief character, what do you have left? Like something like that. But yeah, and then it ends with sort of Kane coming back, like making this thing of like, oh, he's not that after all, he searches the internet, gets information about the real people. And we've learned, I don't know if we learned already in episode 8 that they've been scans of their brains and not the actual people who are in there. So that's a plot twist that I sort of saw that coming. I was like, either they have to fully transition into the real life people, which I do like Jax's perspective, right, with his memory, which is also another interesting thing that like would you have preferred if it's not actual scans and we go back out into the real world, or would that have broken it for you? Like,
no, you could have gone both ways of, whether it's observation or whether it's, interaction in the sense of returning to the thing. I think both routes are interesting ways to go into, but they don't go into those two routes, and they go a little bit more into the emotional stuff. And that's why I'm like, a little bit of a missed opportunity, but I understand it because the creator has said, I had this 9-episode structure in my head the whole time, and like they didn't want to go off that path. They didn't sort of want to oh, maybe I can do another episode here. They didn't want to do any of the batting, and that is a show that I respect. It's like you done your thing, you done what you wanted. Hey, good for you. Like, yes, you could have dived a bit more into this company that was behind these characters, behind this whole ordeal. A little bit of a missed opportunity for me there. Maybe down the line, I mean, I don't know if with that mentality you're open to doing a prequel, sequel, because you are
there's two characters that never get addressed that are in that photo there, I believe. Like, not the ones that have died that are Jax's friends, but two more that are in that picture that we never get to see.
The clown and Ribbit. Are you?
No.
I will say Ribbit is a stupid fucking name. Like, I know it's a frog. Yeah. Find a better name, man. For a Ribbit, come on.
Yeah, I don't know who named him. I could sort of assume that it was Jax who named him, right? Because Jax came
I don't know. I don't know who named him, but
yeah. I think it is like sort of from the creators, you can feel that the message is a bit more important than the actual story at times. And I think that does sort of hinder to make it like something amazing to me, even though it's called The Amazing Digital Circus. My favorite episode was when we were just doing the suggestions, because some of those suggestions do get a payoff in episode 9, where we see like sort of them being together, that group of 3 with Jax and Ribbit and Coffer, I believe is what his name is, or something like that. That they are like just hanging out there, and that was their sort of space that they would suggest to go back to, because sort of speaks to maybe that disconnect. But also that whole thing didn't really work for me. It was like Jax's sort of pushing someone away felt a bit too forced. Obviously, you're trying to do the sort of toxic male trait of like just shutting everyone off because you've had this bad experience and feel like you are bad for everyone and you're just hurting yourself and everyone around you. It felt a bit forced to me. Like all of that sort of stuff. It tad bit, but it works because it's with these archetypes and they're literally cartoons, right? That's the point that he makes too. But yeah, it's solid overall. I think it's very, like, especially the level of quality for the animation. It's crazy. And the director, like herself, she doesn't have any experience in 3D animation. She made it a 2D, so there was a lot of like from Glitch, I believe is the production company.
Yep.
There was a lot of support that like her vision was still trying to be guided through, but she I think didn't do a lot of the animation like herself. And I think like didn't this like project now as it comes into theaters did have a production budget of like $1 million, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's not
And
but what we didn't talk about yet is just how huge the numbers are for this. Like almost 500 million views, I think, as the first episode. It's something crazy like that. And even just having premiered last night, I think the episode 9 on YouTube has, I believe, like over 100 million views already.
Let me quickly check out.
Yeah, it's at 42 million views.
Yeah, I mean, the first episode, 444 million views. I will go down the list. 203, 102, 150, 129, 144, 87 million. Episode 8, 114. And we are only, about 2 days almost past the release of episode 9. And it has 42 million views. And in this day and age, to get above that 10 million views, because back in the day, I felt like in the 2010s, getting your 10 million views was a little bit easier, but now, because the landscape is so like all over the place, it is quite hard to get honed into like a few million viewers unless you something huge. So massive props to the fact that they get those type of numbers. And again, what you said with the teenagers, there were a lot of teenagers in my screening also dressed up as the characters. Do you now see what I also meant with that Cartoon Network thing of like it's a little bit more adult, but it's not fully.
Well, it's also making like clear references to stuff that feel quite like to the point and not like over self-indulgent. Like it really keeps things tight where it could expand, and I think I sort of respect that too. Like how obviously with animation, every other frame costs more, and I think they did instead of doing maybe. I don't know what you would usually do, what the norm is, but it did do 30 frames per second in the animation and not, I believe, I don't know if the standard is also like cinema-like of maybe 25, which is more European than the 23 point. It's, I think, successful, and I think I like that they got to do a theatrical run. Again, it even, like I said it last or 2 weeks ago, that it even had showings, limited ones, in Switzerland. So it made it all the way to here, where, again, Backrooms is coming out this week. Obsession comes out next week. Toy Story is delayed by a month because of the World Cup. Yeah, impressive that this one sort of transcends that and also finds its audience. And also is, I believe, based loosely on inspired by a short story called "I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream" by Harlan Ellison. And I think it's also a line earlier with at one point in episode 3 or something like that, with the zipper. Why do you close my zipper if I don't even have a mouth to speak? Which also sort of represents we can talk all we want, but this AI Kane is not listening to us anyways, right? That's sort of the whole theme of making him listen. But I think it's a bit too sort of it is okay. So it is existing in that sort of liberal dreamscape of we can all just work together and the world is a better place. And I love that is the aspiration that we're going for. It is very much a virtual dreamland. And it's nice to remain hopeful. But yeah, something about sort of that stuff is with Spielberg recently with Disclosure Day as well. That's something that I'm sort of rubbing up against, that I'm feeling it's not resonating with me 100% because it feels like it's
because of the world we live in.
I just don't feel like that is a realistic outcome, but it's nice to have sort of these things still represented in media in that way. But it feels a bit more fantastical, even though we do need people who are like this to sort of connect people again. But yeah, I don't know if I'm.
Sometimes we need an ending like this, Ewan. Sometimes we need it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just quickly to say, the fact that it grows 36.3 million worldwide in just its few select screenings does show also what a audience there is behind a major digital circus. I gave it a 4 out of 5.
I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. To me, it was crazy watching that series. One of the first things that popped up was YouTube shopping, right? And you can go right there. And it was 90 articles that you could shop. I was like, okay, you guys are doing merch. It was how much merch do you want to do? And they were like, yes. So yeah, I guess it's for animation to be successful, they do have to sort of try and get the most out of it. I do respect it, but it was something about it that at every step of the way you do need to both us saying something, but also the commercial side of it. I think that's sort of an interesting pairing that we see more and more, that younger internet audiences don't have that much of a problem of everything being commercialized anymore. That's almost part of the product and part of what it's saying nowadays. But yeah,
but it's also a way to fund your own project with selling merch. So in this case, last night when I was coming back from Backrooms, brother, there was a storm. I mean, just pure wave, like waves of 10 feet. I mean, lightning everywhere, and I had to drive through it. It was crazy. I felt like I was really in a high pressure zone.
You're talking about pressure. I should have done this transition because literally 2 days ago, it was trains stopped working, trams went, trees fell in Zurich and all over Switzerland. We had a huge storm. It was crazy. It was actually crazy. But yeah, I also got a message of hey, pressure is rising high in the weather, which ties us over to hey, my favorite sort of topic: World War II movies about a meteorologist led by Andrew Scott. So this takes place in the 1072 hours before D-Day, and with the fate of the free world hanging in the balance, the film follows General Dwight D. Eisenhower and Captain James Stagg as they face an impossible choice: launch the largest and most dangerous seaborne invasion in history, or risk losing the war altogether. That is Pressure, starring, like I said, Andrew Scott, but also in a much discussed miscast role, Brendan Fraser as not yet President Dwight Ike Eisenhower. We got also Carrie Condon as a sort of overqualified secretary in this movie in a way too, and a very stern Andrew Scott, who like stands on his beliefs and his capabilities of analyzing the data and doing the right thing. And I had quite a good time with this film. I think it's like such an easy film to clown on because it's about the weather of D-Day. And one of the biggest lines is like, "Oh, we got to delay D-Day by 1 day." It's like everyone's saying like, "Oh, it's going to be on June 5th," but then it's actually going to be on the 6th because we know that D-Day was on
the 6th. This movie does feel like it's made for people that have no general notion of history, because it's like when they are saying like not before June 18. Yeah, it's like guys, why are we making such like a horse meal out of this? Like we all know what's gonna happen.
It won't clear up until way later. Yeah, you do know what's incoming, so you're just waiting for like, hold up, we got another reading.
I gotta join the clowning just a little bit, because so like this movie is an hour and 40, 95 minutes with maybe credits off, and it does really feel like the whole time it's gonna be good weather. No, it's gonna be bad weather. Nah, it's gonna be good weather. No, it's gonna be bad weather. It does feel that for the majority of the runtime, and it's not the most appealing stuff to watch. It does feel like this should have done better as a documentary, like a drama documentary, perhaps, about the importance of meteorologists during the World War. Because that is like
no one gives a shit. Then it needs to be dramatized. We suck. That
but it feels over dramatized, and you know it.
Yeah, I know, but we don't care. Like people with no general notions of world history would say like, "Oh, another war documentary about meteorology? What the hell? It's not narrated by Werner Herzog. I don't care."
Herzog can do it. If anyone can do it, he can.
He could narrate a like fucking cat taking a shit, and then like, I don't know. Like
your cat in particular?
I know. That's what I want. Werner Herzog, can you narrate my cat taking shits on the floor? I love that. But I sort of resonated with this because it is an Andrew Scott performance that is, yes, very much the samey. And then the Brendan Fraser, it's an interesting thing for him because like he has sort of as that character, as a person in history, to sort of final say, do we do D-Day or not? Like, do we do it or not? D. Eisenhower is like deciding. And I think what doesn't work is Brendan Fraser's performance is like the most outstanding thing here, in my opinion. I do think he doesn't really work here. He's a bit miscast. Also, do you know that like the Eisenhower pic where he has like his legs crossed and like the meme thing of like he's just very sassy and has like a lot of aura. And I don't think that Brendan Fraser has that same sort of aura as like Eisenhower had in that picture.
But you know what? I'm not saying fully recast Brendan Fraser in this movie because he does match in the physical side of Ike Eisenhower. He does feel very intimidating physically. On that front, Fraser is a pretty good casting choice. I wouldn't call him miscast, but he's a little bit inconsistent in the cadence of his voice. I think that's really where the problem. Sometimes I'm like, he's talking in a certain like pitch, and it's like he's found that pitch. He's doing a good job now, and then he goes out of that pitch, especially during the screaming scenes. Then the Fraserness of him, is going above the Eisenhower that he's portraying, and it's like, oh, Fraser, there you're slipping a little bit out of your role, and that little inconsistency is something that does throw me out of the movie sometimes a little bit.
I don't know if that like one point where he like almost crashes out at the war room meeting, he sounds pretty prophetic there, and I don't know if that's intentional or if it's just Brendan Fraser sounding like that, because I also was like, when people were praising him in Killers of the Flower Moon, I thought he was ass, and I thought he was horrible in Killers of the Flower Moon. Good. Again, we did. I think I'm in the minority. It's a hot take. People liked him in that. I think he was really bad in that. So I'm sort of going in of like, I feel like he was great in the Whale, and people hate the Whale. So I don't know. It's a bit all over the place with like my opinions on the guy. But listen, if this movie had been made 8 years ago, who would have been in the lead role? Benedict Cumberbatch.
Like, oh yeah, I mean, it's imitation game.
So it's very much like a double feature dad World War II movie about a guy who's like the capableness porn of being right, even though there's so many things going against being wrong. But I sort of like the pressure that, no pun intended, that they are under, that like they like, what I don't feel is the leak about it like needing to be today. They keep saying it, but I also don't really, I understand it and I know, yes, but I don't feel it. And I think that's something where there's a bit of a disconnect, where we do sort of repeat the same beat again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I also thought the sort of added trauma that hey, it's based on something real. I couldn't find that out on my loose little Google afterwards, if his wife actually was in a hospital that was sort of bombed, and during that time, like that added trauma to me was like out of left field and wasn't really doing much other than making him sort of like, I guess, very distracted. It also didn't do enough for Eisenhower to like not allow certain things for information to. I think that was a bit like messy there, but I did like the overall tenseness that was all around like trying to figure this out. And it was something that I honestly wasn't. I know the conditions weren't perfect for D-Day. I did know that like on the beaches that they landed, they went, like, you know, there's been movies made about that as well, right? We do know that sort of stuff through movies as well. It's like the general notion of world history just through movies, but I do know a bit more about it. But I didn't know about the specific like this sort of storm thing, that there was like a clearing in between. I didn't know that.
Any movie, like any feature film that is doing a D-Day like action scene, sort of sets itself up for failure. Because we had Saving Private Ryan. Nothing is gonna top Saving Private Ryan ever. I mean, it's literally the part that everybody says the best opening 25 half hour of cinema ever, and nobody, and I don't want to hear it, nobody actually almost talks about the rest of the film. Everybody talks about that opening film, maybe the final shot of, you know, going from Matt Damon to this older self. It's like, oh my god, look how well that is. But, you know, it's just, when I saw the action scenes in Pressure, I was like, it just doesn't hit as hard.
But there was the one guy who kept shooting them down. It did feel a bit lackluster, and it was crazy how many of them died, even though it didn't feel like there were a lot of Germans on that.
I didn't know about the test run they did.
I didn't know about that either.
That was a good...
But that's something that you would leave out of history, especially for like someone who gets the presidency, like, you know, 15, 20 years later. You know, I don't think that would be like, that's something that you want to sort of forget. But that was such a dark moment that I didn't know that was that was like so tragic. It was such a big mistake. Then again, like, you know, he says like, in a way, like not his fault, but I sort of felt like, no, you are in command, like it is his fault, and he feels guilty for it. It's not like he's shedding that guilt, but it's like, he says like it's one thing going wrong. I was like, if you set things up correctly, maybe then there's not the one thing that could kill like so many of your own people. But yeah, and tension's all high,
and those are the moments that I would have preferred over the over dramatization of. I mean, Kerry Condon is doing a lot of the heavy lifting of connective tissue between scenes in this movie.
It really wants Andrew Scott as his hero character. And I think it's sort of, that's the shortcoming of a lot of these war stories, that they do need their war heroes. And I think it is more interesting to show the war as like this very conflicted thing where like, here you have the clear villains and the heroes of the story, the ones who are like making a push for an attack, even though it doesn't make any sense. And you can see that they are just like short-sighted and like stupid for making those reasons. Even though the precariousness of like needing to do it now, otherwise you are in this uncertainty of like it all leaking and all of those plans going to waste. I think it doesn't like give us the complexity there. I think it is like rooted in a lot of like these archetypes of these people. Even for its lead characters, it is very much like this archetypal type of behavior.
Also keeping things behind its own hands, like keeping its cards, be like, oh, we're gonna wait to reveal that Andrew Scott, over like Chris Messina's character, has been hiding 1916 in his cards, and then like during the grand meeting, bam. But did you know that in 1916 the patterns actually don't match to get a point? And it's like, wouldn't you talk about that like in your own private time, like between each other? Like, hey, you're wrong about those analog shards, 1916. Like, why would that be a card that you would keep in your hand to do during the general grand meeting? Maybe it had happened in the past to sort of be in this competition between each other. But for the movie's sake, it does feel a bit overplayed.
Yeah, I mean, it is sort of a swing that sort of gets him the upper hand and credibility in the room. I think that's sort of what it does in the movie and how it works. In real life, yeah, it does feel like that is not the place for these theatrics.
By the way, Chris Messina is such a character actor. Can I just say, I love whenever he pops up in the movie, because it's like, there you are!
Yeah. No, there's the one moment where, like, I think he gives his first speech, Andrew Scott, and that moment is, like, horribly written. The way that he goes like, up and says, like, guys, I'm gonna do my presentation now. Like, that sort of energy he gives off. And I was like, oh, shut the fuck up. You're coming off as such a fucking prick here. And he sort of has to recover from that, like, aura loss for the rest of the movie.
But it's still not a bad movie by any means.
Honestly, I texted you that, like, I must be getting old because I enjoyed this quite a bit. And it's such like dad, like pleasure movie, guilty pleasure type film.
I give this movie a 6.5 out of 10.
Sure, I'll give it a 7 out of 10 because I'm a bit older than you, and that's the rounding up that I'll do for being.
Yeah, it's the boomer tax.
Could have just said like I'm 2 years older, but yeah, so I'll go with the boomer tax.
Now, what we've been watching. Toy Story 5. Ewan, tell me your opinion about the movie.
Okay, so we established this in the beginning. I didn't watch it, Kevin.
Sorry. I need to do this now because you're going to do it to me later. That's why. You know?
Fair. I bring the knowledge for the Toy Story 1 through 4, and you bring it for number 5. So I've heard that this story is a bit more split. We've all seen the trailers. We know Lily Pad, the bad iPad, voiced by Greta Lee, is the antagonist of the story. Is she really, is there's some sort of nuance to be taken away? I assume that's going to be the case because it's Pixar. And I don't know. Like, it's so interesting to hear from you because you don't know yet if they've overplayed their thing because you haven't seen their thing in like fully like these movies for 4 times in a row. And like just on like a really simple question level, like does this movie feel fresh to you or does it already sort of feel played out? Like what's your takeaway?
It feels fresh. It does feel more standalone because I could easily pick into this movie and sort of feel like I never really left. I should say I know about the first 4 Toy Story movies. Now, could I name you the villains of them? I know Zurg. Could I name you the fucking name of that pink teddy bear? I have no clue. Sorry. But I do know what happens in those movies. The faces you're pulling right now, my God.
I was freaking out because I can't remember the name of the pink
bear
either, yeah. I mean, the scene. You know the scene you gotta remember. Yeah. The character names are not that important.
Yeah. But I do know what happens. Like, for example, like Buzz Lightyear says at a certain point, like, oh yeah, and he's our father. Like, I got it. The Star Wars reference in Toy Story 2, I think it is. Like those jokes I did get. So it's not like I have absolutely zero knowledge of the Toy Story franchise. I do know in Toy Story 4 that Woody gives his sheriff to Buzz as well, right?
Well, he sort of ditched. Like, I don't know. He's like, all right, I'm off, I think.
And yeah, I one of the critiques that I had is that Woody feels a little bit out of place in this story. And funnily enough, the director himself said, "Oh yeah, in the first few drafts of this movie, Woody wasn't in it," and that you can feel that.
Honestly, I can't remember how Toy Story 4 ended. I'm sorry, and I didn't rewatch it. I think I still need to. It's not that. Honestly, that's the most forgettable one of them all. But I do believe there was something about like him leaving.
Yeah, and he sort of comes back, and then he sort of leaves again. In Toy Story 5.
That guy is a mess. Like Spalding, he's like has the daddy issues of leaving and going out for a pack of ciggies.
But this movie, happily, for everybody, is more nuanced than screens bad. It's really pointing towards everybody in terms of the parents, in terms of the kids, in terms of just how different kids can be. And the movie is also making a point of the internet can be a scary place, but can also be a very connecting place. And that was a message that I really appreciated, because just for context, like we both grew up, I think, in our teenage years with technology. Like I didn't have I had an old Nokia brick till I was 13, 14-year-old. I had a murder weapon on me at all times. There were no games on it. But once I went to a secondary school, there were other kids that had, their little iPods, like the iPod with screens on it, and they were playing games on it there. And then you are on that edge of, do I want to join them? Like, am I just going to watch along with them? And then you felt that barrier of, people that are losing, themselves into the technology. And then you have people that are talking about experiencing other sides of childhood. And it is so interesting to be part of that switch and now seeing it on the screen. I thought was done very well. Toy Story 5 is a hit. Both critically in terms of movie and box office wise. And I gotta agree with the sentiment of, if your movies are gonna have this standard within the franchise, you can make as many as you want. Jessie's story is indeed also, it's her movie. A lot of people have said that. I agree. Because she's trying to find, a good friend for Bonnie, because Bonnie is going through rough patches. The fact that she is playing with toys, but people are like, ew, that's weird. Like, why are you playing with something, that old? Making a good impression for them. And it's also a little bit of a dig at social media, because the lily pad has many features. It features games, it features this, and it's sort of like, you have to do this in order to get that. And it sort of feels a little bit like an Instagram type of thing of like followers, and you have to comment on each other. Very good. Like, you have to play the game, so to speak. And there are three sort of storylines, I should say. You have Lilypad, you have Jessie's, you have Buzz's. I will say the Buzz's storyline was very, very fun for me to see. And I guess we'll talk more about Toy Story 5 when you finally seen it. And I will do my homework and watch Toy Story 1 to 4. Yes, I have them right here. Oh my god, look at it.
Oh, it's got a box set of all of them in there. Wow.
Yeah, let me actually do this, right? So you got Woody, Bo Peep, Jessie, Mr. and Mrs. Potato. You have Slinky. The alien is not in Toy Story 5.
Killed them all.
I forgot what the pig is called. You have Bullseye. That's the horse. Fuck, bro, I cannot name any other character. Oh god. Can you name them? Wait, let me quickly.
No.
This one has glasses in 5. No clue what the name is. This one is Keanu Reeves. See, I've really shown my my general notion of
Pixar's
Toy
history.
Story. Hey! Toy Story. I've done my fair share.
Have you seen every Pixar movie apart from Toy Story 5 and the Toy Story films?
Do you actually want me to go check it?
I've seen them all apart from Toy Story 5, so I feel like I'm not lacking the general notion of Pixar's history.
Yeah. You said I'm dropping this bomb on Kevin. Go fuck yourself.
Leaving you like the furious person you are. I've also seen the short films.
Go fuck yourself, bro. I've seen 19 Pixar films.
Okay, yeah, not bad.
Of the seemingly 45. No. It's not 45, no. Wait, which ones haven't I seen? I haven't seen Elio. I haven't seen Lightyear. I haven't seen Cars 2 and 3. I haven't seen A Bug's Life. I haven't seen Monsters University. I haven't seen Elemental and the Toy Story 1 to 4. I haven't seen Brave. And that's about it. The rest I have seen. See, that's good. That's solid.
Wait, have you seen Cars 1 through 3, but no Toy Story movie?
No, I haven't seen Cars 2 and 3. I have seen Cars 1.
Sorry, I was about to call it this recording you had. I fucking hate the Cars franchise. I fucking hate it. I despise it. It's to me not that far apart from Minions. I really don't like it.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to watching Toy Story. And
the flaws I have.
Week. Yep.
The flaws that I have with the movie is the storylines are split and they converge, pretty well, not perfectly, but pretty well. And yeah, Woody shouldn't have been in the movie at all. And the way that tech is portrayed, both on the kids' side and the parents' side, it's a lesson for everybody. And those are the best animation movies when they're something to take away for everybody. And Pixar have been, perfect in that department. So yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's gonna do so well. I already know it. And yeah, we'll look forward to when you're seeing it.
But again, maybe there's the special screenings, that previous screenings that are happening still. So I could have gone to see it, but I'm struggling with a bit of a middle ear infection right now. So it was like I gotta stay at home just to sort of heal from that. I haven't fully dealt with it yet, so I don't know when I'll get to see it. But it might be at a later point. But we'll definitely talk about it in the next couple of weeks, in spoiler fashion as well.
I did watch a few episodes of Gamechanger season 8. Absolutely adore that show. It's so good. Have you heard of it?
I don't think so. No.
Oh, you're gonna have a blast watching that. It's a game show where every episode the game is different. And it's from Dropout, and Dropout has been quite killing it with their formats. And Sam Reich is the host, and every episode is different. So with season 8, to just say the first 3 episodes that I've seen and that are released at the moment.
I think I've seen clips of this. I'm really good with just doing the one comedy talk show, whatever it sort of game show it would be with Taskmaster, and I don't want any more. And I'm sort of not looking for like stand up and like game shows to watch more of, because
it's not stand up. No,
that's not what I'm saying.
Example.
I said like those two things I'm not looking for to sort of watch, even with recommendations.
So for example, with season 8, episode 2, it's Roulette 2, and they are spinning from a wheel and they get a rule and they have to keep abiding by that rule. And for example, the most famous thing that has changed every comment section in Dropout is you have to enter sentences with a famous person's full name. So, for example, if we were doing this conversation right now, we would have to say a famous person's name every time we end a sentence, Demi Moore. And, I really like this game show, Robert De Niro. And, yeah, I think you will really, really like it. Al Pacino.
I can see there's probably going to be very funny people on it. It's probably a great game show.
Another thing that I have seen is Clarkson Farm. I had to wait for so long with my sister to finally watch an episode of Series 5. I know you're not really into Top Gear, Jeremy Clarkson, and that whole ordeal, but Clarkson Farm is really a stellar program. And you can say what you want about the man, but he has been so passionate about British farming and has really shed a light on just how difficult the industry is, and you can easily, take those difficulties to your own country of, the regulations, like how ridiculous they are getting. And so, for example, there's like a rule, like in the first episode, they talk about a tax of if your farming property is worth more than $1 million, you have to pay like an additional tax to it. But the problem is that rule was supposed to, envision like the rich people, sort of like Jeremy Clarkson, that are getting into farming, because of their like richness. But then you have other farmers who, for example, one farmer, like Charlie, who's the accountant of Clarkson Farm, was saying, like, they had 600 cows. Like, that's their production. Have been doing it for 5 generations. Those 600 cows are worth more than $1 million alone. And so if you have a tractor, if you have your land, like, you quite easily as a farmer getting over that $1 million thing. And so, like, that's a crazy rule to hear about. And it's quite entertaining, besides all that very roughness. You are getting Jeremy Clarkson and Caleb Cooper, who just aren't getting sheep into their pen, constantly escaping, jumping over the electric fence, so to speak, and that's all very entertaining. But Clarkson Farm is genuinely a masterclass between education and entertainment, and I have to commend, because, for example, with the Grand Tour, like the episodes themselves, but for example, in season 1, aren't that great. Really, a misbalance of that. But in Clarkson Farm, they have nailed it. They have announced Series 6. And I really would recommend everybody to go watch the Clarkson Farm. But that's it. I have Physical Media Corner. They are all Warner Brothers properties. So yeah, we got King Richard. Oh, wow, that was Claire. King Richard. We have One Battle After Another. Mm-hmm. We have Superman. We have Weapons.
Well, all recent stuff, huh?
Cool. All recent stuff that was very cheap. So I don't know if they're like cleaning house or something else. Also, I got House of the Dragon season 1 and 2.
Yes,
because you were so
we want to talk
praise.
Can I talk about season 3 then? Because I've watched the first couple of episodes. I got screeners for it. The embargo is up. And so I'll keep it very vague because you might catch up with it soonish, or it will be in your collection for the next 3 years.
I have watched season 1. I haven't watched season 2 because there was such a divide about it.
I know
that I never really got into it.
I wanted to go back to my ratings for it, and then I realized that I didn't score the individual episodes, at least in my notes. This latest episode, these latest few episodes, which I can't talk about in detail, obviously, until they actually release. I'm forbidden to do that. I can just sort of speak in general terms. But to give you my ratings for episode 1 of season 3 was an 8.5, episode 2 and 9, episode 3 and 9, and episode 4 of 8.5. And I think I'm a bit of a glazer of the show. I do really like it, and I've seen a lot of people also not like this latest season. I also enjoyed the second season, and a lot of people have been saying because there's been a divide with the showrunner, I believe, or the writer of this show and George R. R. Martin. They had a falling out, and like there's no like connection with those two, I believe, like still working together on this latest season, that the show has really faltered with its quality. And I think the first season really jumped from, a lot of like time and like different actresses as well. Like it made some big leaps. And the second season was way more like just in one sort of it's still like ranged over a bit of time, but it was a lot of like back and forths of like this sort of state of the world. And that state of the world has been the setup for season 3. And season 3 just like bangs, and it's like, it's fucking crazy. And like, it doesn't work 100%. Like the dragon stuff still looks very like keyed out in the way that it like looks very fake and rough. I'm willing to, every time there's a dragon on screen, I'm like, back in my chair, suspension of disbelief, fully engaged. I don't give a flying fuck because they're flying on a fucking dragon, and I'm just having a great time. How dark this show is, how people who are casual watchers have no flying fuck who they're talking about because they all have the fucking same name. And dude, I enjoy this. It feels so rewarding to pay attention to this. And I've seen some people say they are not engaged with the characters and the journeys that they're on. I'm so engaged. This is up there as one of my favorite shows so far. I've seen, again, the first half of this third season, and I already know like the wait between season 3 and 4 is going to be long for me. So what I did do, and I didn't pick up, so I can't hold it up right now, I did order Fire and Blood, which does tell the 300-year history. Like the whole history of the Targaryens. I think like the subtitle for it was like 300 years before whatever, like
Yeah.
House of Dragon or Game of Thrones, I don't know. But like it also goes into detail what happens now, and a lot of people have been saying like this third season is where a lot of the action is happening. That's why a lot of people were quite keen on what's coming up, and I can say yes, I think that was quite epic what we got to see so far. And I really like it. It goes into some directions where I was like, oh, they're really going there. They're going to do that. That is okay. Okay. There's no holding back. And yeah.
They have learned from their season 8 mistakes or not?
Yeah. I don't know. Because like it's very different. Like I did see that Duncan and Egg, like that the Night of the Seven Kingdoms is, I believe, competing for drama series. And it's a comedy series. So I don't know why the fuck, like it has both, but it's a similar like situation with The Bear where it doesn't make sense that that's in comedy when it's clearly a drama. So I don't know. The Emmys just don't know what the fuck they're doing with the categories, but that show is amazing. Very different tonally. And this is like an incredibly serious show where it's all bleak and depressing and political. It does feel a bit more modern than maybe Game of Thrones ever felt. But yeah, I've been really enjoying it. And I think all of the performances are amazing too. I've been in love with it, and I can't wait to watch more episodes.
Hi, Ewan. Tell me also how you were in love with The Furious. I'm sort of gonna block you out though.
So I'm not gonna say too much other than it is the best action movie of let's say the 2020s. Yeah, that sounds about right. It has such explosive action, and I'm not just saying that as like a descriptor of what's going on, but literally the way that this fight choreography is happening, it is like people shooting themselves out of propelling themselves against each other in a way that is when, you know, you talked about it, that out of TIFF, people were saying feels like a new era for action, the sort of way that they are going about this. I think we saw like the inklings of it in the stunt choreography by Kensuke Sonomura with something like Ghost Killer already having a sort of interesting kinetic style that is here just like crank it up to fucking 200%. It also reminded me a bit of like The Killer and that sort of team up, because you have a journalist and you have the guy who's like his daughter gets kidnapped, who goes after the criminals, and that's sort of the story that's going on. And you got a few different parties who are like, you know, full chaos. And every sort of solution is always sort of coming down to fighting. And it's like, imagine like the biggest and baddest James Bond villains, but they just like fully indulge in just fighting the whole time. That's what this movie sort of feels like. It's like so over the top, but then they're like just doing it. They're not holding back. And it's an incredibly fun time. It never loosens up. And it has some of the best action set pieces I've seen in any movie ever. Like it really was up there to me. It was like, it's rivaling Fury Road for me in some sequences. It really is like that good. I had such a great time with The Furious. I was like, I'm at a 9.5 for this one rating wise. I think it's amazing. It's not just one of the best action movies of the year, not one of the best action movies of the decades. It's also one of the best like movies in general of this year. So the hype is real, Kevin. And it stings even more that you missed like the press screening that you wanted to sign up for, but like one day. And when does it come out for you? In July? It's not too far away.
No. It's this Wednesday.
Oh, why are you complaining? Oh, okay. Well, next week we'll do a spoiler review for The Fury.
Yeah, but dude, when I told you I want to watch this movie, if I could watch any movie in the beginning of the year, like instantly.
Oh yeah, like,
this would have been the one for the Odyssey. Like, and then you see all of these people raving about it. Fucking you seeing it before me. It just feels wrong, man.
I got the opportunity. I was like, I can't pass it up. It feels like such a win for me. It's also playing at a Swiss Film Festival this next week, I believe, as well, in like 2 weeks' time. That does a lot of like Asian genre horror films all across the board. The Neuchâtel International Fantastic Film Festival, I think it's called. NIF, great festival selection overall. They always have like films that don't get release dates here in Switzerland, and they somehow pick it up. So yeah, always great stuff, especially for the type of stuff that you are interested in and that we find later on VOD. They often actually show it in a theater at one point, so I can really shout out that festival for its selection. And it does have The Furious they're playing, and I feel like with a roaring audience, this is so much fun. Like I can't imagine what it must have been like watching this at TIFF. Like, come on,
dude,
would have been amazing.
So we had that Brett Goldstein, Jennifer Lopez Netflix rom-com a few weeks ago. You've watched that because, of course, you do. You've watched now Voicemails for Isabelle, another Netflix rom-com because, of course, you did. Tell me how it compares. I've
been surprised how many people watched this one because I kept seeing people logging it, giving it 3.5, a 3. Didn't really land for me. It does sort of. I told you that like the Brett Goldstein, Jennifer Lopez one, which I've already forgotten what it's called. It's
Office Romance.
Office. So yeah, that makes sense. Is one that like really loses itself by the end, and this one is sort of charming because, dude, Zoe Deutsch can just like she can carry a movie really flawlessly with a looseness, a charm, but also a heart to it. She's an incredibly impressive actress in the sort of versatility, like especially these like really like I remember her in Not Okay. This character who's despicable, but I'm still sort of feeling and rooting for her in some sort of way. And she's picked a lot of like really fun roles over the last couple of years. Like I enjoyed her what she was doing in Nouvelle Vague too, like last year. I think here she works as well. It's basically like the setup. She has a sister. She sends voicemails to still Isabelle, who died of cancer like not too long ago. And then for a long time, this other guy has a new work phone and gets the voice messages and listens in and sort of uses that to connect with her. Then it's the very like tropey setup of a rom-com where it's all based on a big lie and it builds up to a confession and the sort of the falling in love in between. Like it's very archetypical for this sort of thing, but I think it works for most stretches. It's very cheesy and like I was like, this is guilty pleasure at its finest. And I only gave it a 2 out of 5. But if I'm being honest, it's more 2.5 out of 5. I had quite a good time with it. I felt like I'm overcompensating for like saying, no, I can't like this. But like Nick Robinson is also pretty great in this. And I found out in the promotion as well that they went to high school together. And yeah, they've known each other for a long time, apparently. I don't know if that was like a spoof interview where they were like just like taking a piss.
A 3.7 on Letterboxd? Oh, so people are really...
I told you people are loving it because it does have that earnestness of like, she has lost her sister and that's her core, who she was living for. Like she was trying to live a life for two people, essentially. And I think like it really resonates. It's really moving in parts, but then it is like sort of within that rom-com structure. So, you know, it goes back and forth. And if you like the sort of rom-coms that have a lot of like stakes to themselves and have a lot of characterization, not just like two hot people falling in love, which these two are, but it's not just that. And I think this movie delivers, and I think that's sort of what people are starved for. So that's why a lot of the ratings are. And I think with rom-coms, the rating like skews higher to 4.5 a lot. I gave it like a 2.5.
We should mention like she really has been a rom-com queen in her own way over the years, doing Voicemail for Isabelle, but very much like
not
set it
the
up.
same-ish roles, but very different. Like you know, the sort of rom-com she took on was not the same character, just a love interest again and again, right?
Yeah, but like for example, with Set It Up, you have Voicemails for Isabelle. You have like she's done a few, you know, Why Him, which was a theatrical released one, very big back in the day. Something from Tiffany's. I haven't seen the threesome. By the way, she has a big week because she has had Voicemails for Isabelle. There is a movie releasing in July called Gail Daughtry and the Celebrity Sex Pass.
Yeah, people have been raving about that one. I think it premiered at South by Southwest.
And she is in Minions and Monsters.
Oh yeah, to this day, I think in our schedule, it is still the only movie that releases that week. And I think my note is like, the fucking Minion movie is like our main topic. And I haven't found anything else yet, so we'll see what we'll do. I'll probably get like an invite to go to the in-house screening for that one. And I don't know if I can show up at Universal headquarters in Switzerland having shit talked to Minions so much. So I think I sort of have to skip it. I like have to take the L on that one. So I don't know if I'll see the preview of Minions and Monsters.
So tell me about Mother Mary, because I've actually not seen this one yet, even though I could. what did I miss?
Dude, I realized like 2 days ago, like really like shortly before we started recording today, it wasn't that long ago, that wait, this movie released on VOD. And I totally missed like actually watching it because I've been looking forward to it. It's been like on the release schedule for, it feels like 2 years, where this movie kept getting delayed and sort of pushed and everything. And I think aesthetically this is really interesting. I'm sort of wondering why Michaela Cole hasn't gotten more roles, because, you know, in I May Destroy You, it was really like a breakout role that people were praising. Amazing role, what's next for her? And then she's had the Christophers now, which I told her performance was sort of very stiff, but it needed to be that sort of way. But it felt hard to connect with her. And then it was the same thing here, where like a lot of her character was like stiff and sort of hard to engage with and very much like bitter, but that was the point. But also to a point where like I think it wasn't entirely matching with Anne Hathaway's character. And then she's been in like 2 Black Mirror episodes. She was in Wakanda Forever and she was in The Last Jedi, but yeah, really not that much that she's done. And I sort of feel like, oh, that role really worked. And then the rest of the stuff that I've seen her in, I was like, no, she's sort of second fiddle still, even though it doesn't really like she wasn't a standout to me in this movie. I think Anne Hathaway really runs away with sort of the complexity of like this really frantic pop star who sort of lost her identity, and then this entity that is clinging to her. And the first half is like very much just, I think for like half an hour they just talk in a barn, and it's like back and forth just talking about the past, about the present, about whatever. And then it becomes this really like vast visualization of this sort of redness, this entity that's within that sort of clung to her. And it's really interesting on a visual level, but it was harder to engage with emotionally. So I went away from this film not really being that wowed by it, and felt like Anne Hathaway was the takeaway here, what I really enjoyed, and some of the visuals that Lowry put on screen. I only ended up giving this a 3 out of 5. I think it's still an interesting film, but initially I was hoping that this was going to be whatever year it releases in, it's going to be hopefully one of my favorites, and really isn't in the conversation like for that at all.
Which is the same with a director like David Lowery, who can do so many great things, but
yeah,
it's also not fully surprising.
He always swings, and I appreciate that, you know.
I don't know why, but it does feel like, you know, sometimes he goes for something big. You know, he has done The Green Knight, but now it's like he has done Peter Pan and Wendy, which is a movie that did feel like it came and went. Now he got Mother Mary, so yeah. I don't know what he's got up next. It seems he has Death in Her Hands with Tilda Swinton. An elderly widow's life is upturned when she finds a cryptic note on a walk in the woods. So sounds quite intriguing. I quickly went to Michaela Cole's IMDb. She is doing a series up next, where she's the lead, called First Day on Earth. So maybe that's like, you know, material where she can really, you know, grip her teeth in it again, with something like the other series that you mentioned. Quickly forgot it.
I May Destroy You, yeah. But
I May Destroy You.
Similar to me, almost like Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who had that huge moment, and then it was also around the same time, like pre-COVID, but like shortly before. And then she was in like the latest Indiana Jones film. Then sort of nothing really, like I haven't seen much of her. I know she's probably working on some stuff, but in a similar way where like I feel like she's very capable, but
she's directing the Bloodsport reimagination.
Oh.
Yeah, reimagining of the 1988 film, the Jean-Claude Van Damme one. Okay.
Yeah. But just someone who I wouldn't have minded, wouldn't mind like seeing more of, you know, in more movies, even if it's smaller roles. And for both of them, I feel like another film that, you know, was like, it's on a similar level of Minions and monsters. I sort of feel okay to avoid it is the latest Scary Movie film that does involve the Wayans again that were like cut out by Weinstein back in the day for, I believe, like part 3 and 4 and possibly even 5. I don't know. I'm not that caught up on the series. I really only vaguely remember the iconic nature of the first one and those bits, but I haven't rewatched them since I first watched them like a really long time ago. And then this one sort of promoted itself by being this like anti-woke thing, and like I don't know, it's just that's not what it is. It's just poop humor, like it always has been, like a very like low bar reference type thing. It is fine. They have the production budget behind to do sort of these gags, but then it's really not that funny. Like the overall jokes, especially when the weigh-ins are in there, are so painfully unfunny when they like want to have sort of their characters be at the center of it all. They like, I'm gonna spoil the film because it's a fucking scary movie thing. But like this like younger characters in there that then at the end they're not the villains, but they just like kill them all off because they're like, yeah, fuck it, this is our franchise, and then they just like sort of walk out the original people in it. I don't know. This isn't for me. I think this is sort of the the awards talk when the presenter is shitting on the films. There's also an appreciation in there, but it's that sort of energy of like engaging with the film on that sort of level where they are a punchline to something and there's not more engagement, and that's fine in a parody film. I just thought it was like pretty bad, and I only gave it like a 1.5 out of 5. And I've been continuing watching some James Bond films, like From Russia with Love and Goldfinger, the other two that were on Criterion. I think those were like more like better than Dr. No, which is the first one, right, with Sean Connery. I've also been continuing listening to the audiobooks, Diamonds Are Forever, From Russia with Love, and I'm currently on Dr. No. So they do go a bit out of order the way that they adapted them and the books. And there's like, I think 14 or 15 from Ian Fleming, and I'll sort of continue watching like about 2 a week. And Goldfinger is the one that like goes pretty crazy for the first time with some of its characters, where it's very over the top, and From Russia with Love is a bit more grounded. But yeah, both of them worked. They're very much still of its time, and the writing still from Ian Fleming is like so painfully late 50s, so racist. It's like so xenophobic. It's crazy. It is like such a tough like listen. But then I also thought like, hey, post Disclosure Day, me not really connecting with it, why not watch the 3 other films that are about like aliens in Spielberg's filmography that I haven't seen? Like I haven't seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I haven't seen AI, Artificial Intelligence, and I hadn't seen War of the Worlds. And I watched them all, and I sort of thought they were all kind of good to okayish, but none of them blew me away. Like not even Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Damn.
I don't know if I'm in an era where like I'm a bit fed up with sort of the Spielbergness of it all. Like where it feels a bit too constructed to me, where I'm not connecting with it a bit. I think War of the Worlds was the most of that. Like it's also the least like out of these 3. But that movie is just like a Tom Cruise action film, and it like I don't know. The spectacle is crazy, but it didn't work for me there. But have you seen Close Encounters?
No.
Have you seen the other 2, or is it also like a blind spot of it? And did just watch AI before we started recording today, and I think that's an interesting one because it has Haley Joel Osment as this like kid who is sent to this family, and it reminded me a lot like the aesthetics from when people were probably referencing that in their Sheep in the Box reviews, because at one point he does get like left in the forest to fend for himself and then craft his own life, and I think that's sort of probably what Hirokazu Koreeda was referencing to, like probably because it felt very one-to-one. It's just to me crazy in these Spielberg movies how many like star cast like he attracts, and then they have a couple of lines and that's all they're in for. Like there's a really small role that Brendan Gleeson has,
but it's also a Kubrick one that he like picked up, right? That's the
Kubrick one where the first and the third act were mainly written by Kubrick, and the one in between, the one that adds like sort of a pleasure robot played by Jude Law, is the one that Spielberg did the most part on. And the parts that are a bit more like this sort of looking for a parental figure of this David character of this David. He's the first in like these creatures that can like these robots that can love in this intelligence, and that's sort of then I don't know, it's very sentimental building towards like the alien thing just comes in very late, and I guess it's a bit of a spoiler to say, but it really isn't that much of an alien movie. It's a bit of like an afterthought, where like at one point we just skipped 2,000 years. 2,000 years. So it's like okay. But yeah, that one's pretty solidly made, and I think Close Encounters of the First Kind is such an inspiration for so many other things, and I think it's really well done. I liked it, but it's not one of Spielberg's like best in my opinion. X-Men 97 continues to do like a dark side story, pretty interesting, split sort of episodes with different focuses in the past, in the 90s, and in the future, which was to me interesting. Like it expands all of these characters to give them a bit more time in between, and it's still like that slightly adult, older skewing sort of tone that it goes for. It's pretty bleak. Then I watched Every Year After, which is the worst show that I've seen so far, and honestly it's the type of show that Kevin looks at and asks me like, wait, why the fuck did you watch that? And exactly, I just wasn't I my ears were hurting. I just wanted to have something on and not sleep, but then I saw a bunch of TikTok clips of this, and it looked sort of intriguing. So I watched the show, and Prime did send it to me before. Amazon did send me the screeners before, but I never got around to it. And then the whole series just dropped, and I was like, you know what? It's just 8 episodes. I might as well watch it. And then I was sort of engrossed in the story, even though it was like very much a guilty pleasure to non-pleasure because it wasn't that good. But again, I sort of like these romance things, even if when they're like clearly like adapted for like from a mediocre book. But yeah. But then the thing that like is making the late search to be an Emmy consideration, Widow's Bay, this sort of horror comedy starring Matthew Rhys, who is the mayor of the small island where people are seemingly like stuck on. If you've been born there, you can't ever leave. And he's the doubter of this. In the beginning of the show, he also has a son and is trying to sort of get more tourists there. And then I don't want to say much more than that. It really is a show that works so well with its comedic tone and the horror parts of it. Like it goes back and forth pretty seamlessly, and it definitely leaves things open for a second season. It just ended its last episode, like I think it aired last week.
I think it's announced the second season.
Yeah, and it's been very popular. And again, with this late search, they were just off of the thing where like you need to premiere, I think, 6 of your episodes by the end of May to be considered for the eligibility for the Emmy season. And they're just about there. So he's going to shake up the race as well. Like I think his performance is really good in it, and I think the show overall is quite well done. Where it leaves off, it's so interesting to see what happens next. So I'm sort of like, I'm incredibly intrigued for the second season, and I did just binge that all last night. Because again, I stayed up all night because a heat wave. I'm about to start sweating because it's about to turn, I think, 32 degrees now.
I've been sweating, brother.
It's so hot in Europe. It's crazy. But hydration break, right? Anyways, for the final stretch of my little thoughts, actually, that was it. That was it. No, the rest of the stuff I got there is stuff that's still on the embargo that I've already seen. But
I see something Gone in 60 Seconds.
Oh yeah, sorry, I almost missed that. Yeah, no. Okay, that's another thing. Over on Criterion, sorry. There was a category called Stunts. The only film in that category that I didn't have a chance to watch before this recording was Police Story. And I haven't seen that yet. I know, Jackie Chan, I gotta see it. But because I was prepping we had a Midsummer Fest here in my town, where I organized a projection where we showed like black and white movies mainly that were just like a screening for a couple of hours on one of the walls. As like a whole bunch of stuff was going on in town. I did prep The General and Steamboat Bill Jr., 2 Buster Keaton films, and I had never seen them fully. I just had seen the most famous sequences and discussed them in film school and all that. So I felt like, you know what? They're only like 70, 80 minutes long. I'll watch them both. I did that. Also discussed a lot of like the stuff of Safety Last in school, which is often the forgotten silent era like sort of actor and filmmaker, or I think mainly actor with Harold Lloyd. It is Harold Lloyd when you have Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin, and this is the one that's like known for him hanging on the clock. I remember we did in like film school we did a whole like section on like how did they film that and like the staging and the blocking, and like that was a whole thing that we did there. So I remember that scene And I was a bit surprised in like Steamboat Bill Jr. I know in the general, like the general refers to a train. It's like it opens with like his two loves are like the engine and this girl. And then he's part of the Confederate people trying to enlist for a war fighting against the North. And it's then sort of this like this genre of film in like the 20s and 30s especially that sort of is doing the whitewashing of history through the Confederate side. And this is one of the movies in there. So it was like, to me, the whole time, very yucky to watch. The stunts are pretty good to decent, but like, I feel like I can disconnect from, oh, this was very impressive to this was a great film. And I thought the general was just okay. And the same goes for Steamboat Willie. Like, I think what's great about that is like the destruction at the end. I think Steamboat Bill Jr. has one of the best endings. You've probably seen it. It's like where the whole town is just like sort of washed away by a huge storm and everything's sort of breaking apart. And he's like flying around. Everything's destroyed. It's so famous sequence where he's like standing and the house is falling in on him. And he's only in the small like window where he survives. And he like the stunts that he does there is like, how the fuck did he actually accomplish that? Like, it's that impressive. What stands out in these older films is that, especially in the Buster Keaton ones, it feels like he's just like pulling everyone in to be sort of a stunt performer in these films. Because yes, he's doing stuff, but he's constantly like touching people and like they're falling over and shit. So it's messy. It almost feels like, I don't know if everyone's up to the same level, and he's just like, I'd love to hear what people thought back in the day, what it was like to be on that set, because it felt like you came away with a shit ton of bruises and everything. But then I also watched Gone in 60 Seconds. The one from 74 was in there because it has that like 40-minute long chase scene at the end. And we did talk a couple of months ago about like the best chase scenes in movies of all time. And I think this would be one of the ones mentioned. I think it wouldn't be up there as the best, but it's definitely one of the longest ones. And I think it works really well. It's basically the cops just trying to get this guy, and like a couple of comedic bits as well, where like they go, okay, we got him, and then he escapes, and that happens like 3 times. So I like that quite a bit. And then the Gone in 60 Seconds is the most 2000s film I've seen in a while, and like the cast there is pretty crazy as well. Like in the one in the 70s, they basically, there's only voiceover. They don't really do, like, it's all ADR or like voiceover. They don't really talk, and it's just the vibe to get to like about an hour into just the chase, and that's all this movie is about. Like, it's just building up. I was not invested in any sort of character, and then Gone in 60 Seconds is going the way different route, where like Nicolas Cage is trying to protect his younger brother. He used to be like a car thief, but went out of the business and sort of come clean to make sure that his brother doesn't get in the line in that work. He ends up getting there in there as well, and like the premise of both of these films is that he has to steal 50 cars in 72 hours. And crazy thing, like it's a heist film, but then also sort of car chase thing. In this one, it's only like a 20-minute long or 15-minute long like actual car chase. But yeah,
it's just a question: cast. Is it eligible for a certain show format?
Like, no, because they are no. The Gone in 60 Seconds is a remake of that one. No, it's not. Unfortunately, not eligible. But they are very different films, but they do have the same premise, but they are like different. Honestly, the one in the 70s is like unintelligible of what the fuck is actually going on at plot level. It's just about the chase scenes, and it's done like by one of the most prolific like stuntmen or stunt directors back in the day. So it sort of comes from that, like where he is in the lead role and then like doing a shit ton of stunts himself there. So yeah, impressive stuff, but can recommend that stunts section that they have over on Criterion. There's a couple of really fun films in there. But
all right, that's it.
Yeah, that brings us to the end of this week's episode. Next week, I think we have such a loaded episode where we are just going to do reviews together, depending on how much you'll see. But we are definitely, as our main review, gonna do Supergirl. Then we also have Blue Heron releasing on VOD, which I haven't seen yet, so I'll watch that. Potentially, I think Jackass is coming out. I don't know if we both get around to seeing it or if it releases in cinemas.
Unfortunately, Jackass has not, like, distributor has said they're not releasing Jackass in Belgium. They might do in Netherlands, but it's like, I'm not traveling to Netherlands to, unfortunately, go see that one.
Yeah, it is coming out in Switzerland, but they're not doing a press.
I have a question. Is Supergirl releasing this week?
Yeah. It's not releasing for you. I got a screening for it on Tuesday, but it comes out this Thursday for me.
Wait, let me quickly check, bro.
I guess I don't know. Yeah,
not for me then.
I see in Belgium and in France it comes out on July 1st. So.
Yeah. I'm seeing Minions. So the movie that I'm seeing this week are The Furious. I will be watching that.
Yeah.
I will watch Minions and Monsters.
Oh, that doesn't come out for me this week. So, it's fucking all over the place, this release schedule. I blame the fucking World Cup, man. Bunch of men without balls kicking around the fucking ball, and the world is going crazy.
I like the World Cup, Ewan. I'm sorry.
I don't like it. Stupid ass fucking...
What I can tell you is all the movies that are coming out on VOD this week. I mean, we got the Billie Eilish Hit Me Hard and Soft. We got Blue Heron. We got Caroline and Caroline. We got an animated movie called Shower. We got I Love Boosters. We got Power Ballad. We got Tuner. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, and if Tuner's great. I've already seen that one. You want to watch that one? We got a shit ton of reviews next week.
Yeah. And if you have been waiting a year long for In the Haunt of Dante, it is finally coming out this Wednesday on Netflix for you.
If you don't want to watch it, in our review, we spoil the whole movie, so you can just go watch our review if you don't want to watch it on Netflix.
And then also dropping on Netflix that you have been embargoed for is Little Brother.
Yeah,
should people go watch that?
I cannot say. It's under strict embargo until the day it releases, if that tells you anything. I also watched The Bear and Avatar The Last Airbender that next season. Both embargoes lift on Thursday, so I will have my thoughts for those things on next week's episode as well. Apart from, I guess, shout out to other shows on this week, we're going to talk about spring, summer, fall, winter, and spring on 2.54 centimeter barrier. And then next week, we are talking about Aniara, the film that you picked. And then on Cinematic Doppelgangers, we're going to talk about The Way Back soonish. You get that episode soon. But
yeah,
we're also releasing all of our gun stuff finally. We've recorded it all. It's all in the books. Might have been already last week, but now I'm fully locked in the editing chamber and it's hot in here. That's why I'm sweating. And I'm sort of locked up until I finish up all of these 80 reviews that we did from the festival. And we still have like a best of video that is still coming out. So much stuff on the channel. So if you aren't subscribed already, we do appreciate if you like the video as well, but go check out these other playlists and subscribe to the channel. And Kevin, we'll see everyone next week with an incredibly loaded episode.
3-hour episode incoming?
Oh, no. Well, I think this week we did, the reason why it's longer today is because we did almost 50 minutes on Backrooms. I think that's sort of why. I love that discussion though, but hey, that's an off-screen thing where we sort of have a moment between the two of us of like, wasn't this a good episode? I like talking to you. But you're out of this, all right? You're not included. We appreciate you being around, but you gotta go now, all right? I say cut.